All right, it is 6 o'clock on Monday night. So good evening and welcome to the Boise School District April regular board meeting. Thank you. Before we start, I would like to remind everybody that we conduct our meetings according to the district values of respect, dignity, honesty, responsibility, and teamwork. In keeping with those values, here are the rules for our board meetings. First, out of respect to all patrons, trustees, and staff, interruptions to our business will not be tolerated. Any person who tries to disrupt this meeting will be given one warning. If there is a second disruption, that person or persons will be asked to leave. The meeting will not continue until the persons or persons has left the room. Second, we will be taking oral comment at this meeting. Each person will have 3 minutes to provide input. I am asking each person limit their testimony only to the agenda items on the agenda. Third, if you have an additional input you would like to share with the board, please submit it via email. Our email addresses can be found on the district website. Our preferred method of input is email, as it gives each board member the opportunity to consider comments before the board meeting. I assure you that every member of this board reads the emails we receive, and thank you for supporting these board rules. So with that, call the board to order. I think we'll need to do, will you do a roll call because we are short one board member?
Trustee Wagers.
Here.
Trustee Greeley.
Here.
Trustee Gregory.
Here.
Trustee Hawes.
Here.
Trustee Langley.
Here.
Trustee Oppenheimer, not present. Trustee Schmidt.
Here. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Clerk Mass. With that, we will go to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will ask you to all stand, and I think we're going to have Hillcrest Elementary lead us today in the pledge.
I to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, first graders. Can you
It is our distinct honor to recognize an individual who has served the children of the Boise School District for 26 years. In many ways, this person is in the backbone of the Just for Kids program. This person has actually been part program since 1993, when she started as a site coordinator at the Garfield Elementary School location. At that time, JFK was a USDA grant-funded program under the guidance of the University of Idaho and was called Just for Kicks. In 1996, the Boise School District adopted the program and in 1997 renamed it Just for Kids. That same year, this person moved to the Shadow Hills Elementary JFK, where she was a part-time site coordinator, and she began working as part of the JFK administrative team. This person continued in those roles until 1999, when she took on a full-time administrative position, which she holds to this day. This person has seen JFK program undergo many changes. She has worked under 6 program coordinators. She has seen the program grow from 2 locations to 13 locations and 1 infant toddler facility located at the Frank Church High School. Her commitment to the program and to the values of the Boise School District go beyond her years of service. However, however, and include a true investment of time, energy, thought, care, concern, and more. This person always puts people first, specifically children. She embodies everything that Just for Kids stands for. The entire JFK community relies on her depth of knowledge, creativity, and infinite patience. She has not only helped build the program from the ground up, but she has truly served the students, families, and staff within the diverse JFK community. She is an individual who leads with heart, and the JFK community is thrilled to see her recognized for her tireless efforts and unending enthusiasm and unparalleled commitment. It is our pleasure to recognize Jana Gray, Administrative Technician, Just for Kids, with the Golden Apple Award for April 11th, 2022. For outstanding service to education and for educating today for a better tomorrow. Here is your award, and here is the words that were spoken today. Would you like to say a few words? Sure.
Thank you. This is really an honor. Thank you, Allison, for nominating me, and those of you that chose me for this. I've been reflecting the last few days about my career with Just for Kids. I'm very proud of what this program has become and what it means to our district and what it's done for our community. Several groups of people I need to recognize that helped me get to this. First of all, my family. My husband's been there, has worked for the district almost as long as I have. He's the one that got kids up and off to school every day so that I could be at work at 7 o'clock. And without him, there's no way. My kids, Just for Kids, Boise School District was a huge part of their lives. They were in diapers in elementary school when I started working for Just for Kids. Now they're grown with kids in diapers in elementary school themselves. So they both attended Just for Kids after they graduated high school. They worked for Just for Kids during their college years, which I think really helped them to become better parents. The other group is the administrative group here. I have worked under several school boards, several area directors, and all the way down to program coordinators. The theme I have seen over the years and felt over the years more than anything is Boise School District cares about their staff. Without staff that are cared about, an organization does not function as well. On the other end, the Just for Kids staff are amazing. My job wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. They put their hearts and souls into this program. And it makes me proud to be a part of it. This is an honor, but the biggest honor in my career is when I see kids that were in my classroom come back and work for us or enroll their children later, and seeing staff that started out with us as high school kids or just out of high school, and now they're teachers and directors in this district. So that makes me very proud, and I just want to thank everybody that was involved in this. Thank you.
It is our pleasure to recognize an individual who has served the children of the Boise School District for 17 years. The care and concern this person demonstrates towards the students at Hillside Junior High is second to none. When asked to describe this person, the word you will hear from her colleagues that they use most often is amazing. She has seemingly boundless energy, which she gives day in and day out to all of her students. Whether she is teaching English, creative communications, or English language development, this person provides a safe and nurturing space for her students. Her students often carry a smile for the entire day because she was proud of their improvement or accomplishment, and she noticed, as she always does. Some of the strongest and most hardened kids have broken down, not because they were in trouble or being suspended, but because they knew that she would be disappointed in their behavior. These kids know that she truly cares about them and has their best interest at heart. This person wears many hats, as she teaches within the walls of Hillside and also is involved in the community outside the school's walls. She is a board member of Nations United Soccer and helps orchestrate players' transportation, clothing, equipment, and funding. And she tries her absolute best to attend games when students ask. And there are over 100 students who play. She's involved with Game Changers Idaho and the LEAP program and is the leader of Hillside Junior High's Bridge program. Our Bridge program is here today. She organizes activities such as Rake Up Boise for the Bridge students, and she makes home visits to speak with families about their student progress or issues. What brings this person joy is making someone else's day just a little bit better, and her mentality is to do this exactly the same way every day. It is our distinct honor to recognize Dr. Lisa Sterling, English Language Development Teacher, Hillside Junior High, with the Red Apple Award for April 11th, 2022, for outstanding service to education and for educating today for a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much for this award, and I'm very honored and very privileged to be here receiving this. I've been seeing teachers win this award for 17 years, and now to get to be one of them is really an honor. The other day, I was looking at this bulletin board I have in my classroom with one of my students that's here today, and it has different sayings and different quotes from famous people and just different inspirational kind of words. And it was an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so he asked me, what does this mean? And I said, in your life, you can go places alone and you can get there. It's hard, but you can do it. Or you can go together and go with someone. And if you can find someone to be with you and believe in you and support you and encourage you, you will go anywhere in life and you can go far. So I just want to say thank you to everybody here that's been believing in me and helping me on this journey that we're all on together. And thank you for people that believed in me as I was changing from a school psychologist to a teacher. And I took a big kind of leap of faith. And I appreciate people that were there with me and those that have encouraged me. But most of all, just to look and see the students here today is what really fills my bucket. And to see all of you here and remind me that this is the reason I'm doing what I'm doing. And you all inspire me every day. And I'm learning as much from you as you're learning from me. So thank you. And thank you to the administrators and teachers that have been with me and encouraging me along the way too. I appreciate all of you. So thank you very much.
For our staff, because without our staff, we can't get to our kids. And that's always our most important job, is getting to kids. But thanks for great staff, Jana and Dr. Sterling. Thank you for all you've done and all you will do in the future. You're not done yet. So with that, we'll move on to another fun thing. And actually, it's nice to have students back in the boardroom for our ASB report. And we're going to start with Borah High. If you'll introduce yourself and your report, that will be great.
Trustees, my name is Mia Hedker and I am from Borah.
My name is Mallory Festus, and I'm also from Borah High.
We are so excited to be here in person today to share with you all what we have been getting up to at Borah since January, which is the last time we saw you. Next slide, please. First of all, we had some awesome participants and winners for National History Day. This year's theme was Debates in Diplomacy, and Mia Hedker and Esther Davis won first place with their documentary about chemical warfare in World War I, and Miriam Friedel won second place with her research paper. We are very excited to announce that they will be moving towards state and hopefully national.
We love our bus drivers. For Bus Driver Appreciation Day, Borah Student Council created and held up posters to show how much we appreciate them. We also brought them donuts, sorry, and tumblers that were filled with candy. And this was just one small gift for how much they do to show our appreciation.
Next slide, please. Directed by our Senior Vice President, Lily Jenkins, we traveled to South and West junior highs and gave presentations about student council to promote involvement once students get to Borah. We received the most submissions from junior highs than ever before, and we can't wait to conduct interviews with the applicants to meet our new sophomore representatives. We also conducted regular student council elections at Borah, and we're very excited to introduce our new positions for the 2022-2023 school year. Next slide, please.
Our second annual slime fundraiser is kicking off. As a fundraiser for prom, we are raising monies and incentivizing our students by letting them slime one of the teachers. The photo on the bottom are the 3 teachers that participated last year. This year, we are raising it to 5 teachers. The first 3 out of the 5 to reach $150 will get slimed this Friday.
Next slide, please. Now, there's some amazing sports teams and clubs that we would love to highlight. The next slide. Borah's GSA club partnered with Boise's Saga Club along with many other students and participated in a celebration with the blocking of House Bill 675, an anti-trans bill that would make it illegal for minors to seek out gender-affirming healthcare in Idaho. It was amazing to see how many people showed up to the celebration in support of our transgender community in Boise, in Idaho, and across the globe. There were some fantastic speakers who talked about their experiences, both as a transgender youth or as an ally, including speakers Phoenix McCoubry and Lillian Peterson from Borah. Next slide, please.
On April 2nd and April 9th, the JV tennis team traveled to Parma, Idaho to participate in tournaments. They brought home several medals and represented Borah in sportsmanship and respect.
With minimal sunburns. Next slide, please. Borah's Green Team has begun multiple projects, which is super exciting, and the biggest one being the renovation of the Borah Garden. We've learned how to write grants, which were then approved by the school board. The renovation will include new sustainable garden boxes and a green wall for shrubbery and coverage. There will also be a new carbon sequestration garden to reverse the effects of carbon emissions from Borah, filled with native, non-invasive plants to Idaho. Green Team is also putting together an Earth Week next week leading up to Earth Day, filled with events and activities promoting sustainability and environmental awareness, including a sustainable art competition. This competition includes art students in the Borah community, and 12 winners will be chosen to be featured in a calendar that will be sold as another Green Team fundraiser. Next slide, please.
Another club highlight is from the engineering department, where Ethan Hunt built a wind-up toy model, and it's also where Sydney Gordon designed and built a swivel office chair that had accessories and bearing wheels.
Next slide, please. So that is the end of our presentation. We would like to thank you again. We really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all about Borah High. We are now open for questions.
Any questions from trustees or comments? Trustee Gregory?
Thank you, President Wagers. So Mia, you may have mentioned it, but what was your National History Day video about?
It was about chemical warfare during World War I and kind of both the debates and diplomatic decisions that stemmed from that creation of this new weapon. And ultimately, our thesis was about how there was no enforcement from diplomatic leaders around the world, and so it was ultimately a failed operation. So super interesting.
Yeah. What kind of how many classes and what class are you in that participates in National History Day?
It is actually an outside of class kind of arrangement, and so it's something that any student can participate in regardless if they have a history class. I was encouraged by my AP US history teacher, Jane Davis. She's a great teacher, and I worked with Esther to kind of bring that all together. It was super invigorating, and we got to reach out to two BSU historians to talk about that with them. So that was very interesting.
Thank you.
Any other trustee? Trustee Haas?
Just a couple comments, Mia and Mallory. Couple things. Really impressed by your bus driver appreciation day. I'm really thought that was really neat. I think it takes everyone to be that's part of the district to make it successful, and I'm really glad that you took time to appreciate those bus drivers. And then I just want to comment. I'm really excited about the Borah Garden renovation. I sit on the sustainability committee, and so I was able to hear a little bit about it. So I'm really excited that you're doing that and excited to see that develop. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
We're really
thanks.
excited about that too. It's really awesome that we were able to get that grant approved and get money to start working on that. So our first work day in that garden is this Saturday, which is super exciting.
And then finally, if I can insert one more thing, I think President Wager should do the slime deal. I mean, I'd pay money, good money for that.
It's going to be a whole lot more than $150.
Deal.
It'll go fast, I'm sure. Maybe we'll do that. We'll see.
We had a very exciting advancement in that fundraiser. Two different students each donated $150 today
Whoa.
to get two different
They
our
wanted to make
teachers'
sure it
names.
happened.
So yes, Mr. Kenyon and Mr. McKenna, our vice principal, will both be getting slime this Friday.
I don't know if I'd do that before I got my final grade from one of those teachers. I mean, the principals I get, but the teacher. Any other comments? No, thank you again. Appreciate, it's great to hear everything that's going on in the schools, and it's good stuff. And you're still smiling, and that's wonderful. So thanks again for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And with that, we're going to proceed to Frank Church High School. And I think we're going to have Oliver and Iona. Look at that. They're right on just like that.
We're just going to start sharing our slideshow real quick. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right. Can you see the presentation?
Yes, it's there.
All right. Good evening, President Wagers and respected trustees of the Boise School Board, Superintendent Dennis, Deputy Superintendent Roberts, directors, and district administrators. My name is Oliver Wright, and this is my third year attending Frank Church, and I'm going to be graduating at the end of this quarter. We start tonight by recognizing our outstanding students at our school. Congratulations to our Frank Church 2022 Rotary Scholars, Riley McDougall, Ayana Torres Martinez, and Tony Vane. The three of them are not only exemplary students, but wonderful human beings, and we are very proud to say that they are Frank Church graduates. We had an amazing quarter three. 80% of our student body had over 80% attendance. Better attendance often leads to better grades. We also want to congratulate all the students that made honor roll. We had 97 students who earned a GPA of 3.0 or higher for quarter three. That's almost 40% of our student population. This is a testament to the amazing staff and school environment at Frank Church. Our Pathways classes are allowing time for students to talk about and create positive changes in their school. Miss Liston's Pathways class raised $200 selling candy grams for Valentine's Day. This money went to our community center to help meet the needs of our community. Miss Packold and her Pathways class started a Keep Our Campus Clean project. They challenged classes to adopt a section of the school and spend one period a week cleaning up trash. Danny Stewart, published writer and writing teacher, continues to come to Frank Church on Thursdays to teach students about the creative world of poetry and encourage student writing. Numerous Frank Church students have been selected to be published in a 2022 Cambioa Book of Poetry. The published book will be available in libraries later this year. Our annual plant sale is coming up in May. Beautiful hanging baskets, vegetable starts, perennials, and more, all propagated and tended to by Miss McDougall's horticulture class. The proceeds from this event support next year's horticulture class and our very special greenhouse. Our graduation celebration will take place at Frank Church on May 19th. This year, we have over 80 graduating seniors. Of those graduating seniors, 51% plan on going to post-secondary education, and 68% of them have filled out at least one college application. Way to go, class of 2022.
Hello, my name is Ayana Knowles, and this is my third year attending Frank Church High School. I am graduating at the end of the 2022 school year. Starry Nights is our theme for this year's prom. National Honor Society, FCCLA, Pathways, and art classes are helping put together a special evening for juniors and seniors. We are really looking forward to celebrating together for the first time in 3 years. We have a prom closet set up at school where students can pick out a gown, bag, shoes, and even jewelry at no cost. Thank you to our teachers and the community who donated all of these items. On April 28th, the Career Center will be hosting Opportunity Day. This will focus on exposing students to career and technical education options outside of the traditional college track. From cosmetology to firefighting, we want students to know that higher education doesn't only look one way. The AVID 11th, 12th grade class is currently working with a donor in Boise who will be sending supplies like socks, blankets, food, and personal hygiene items to the class. The class plans to assemble and distribute these care backpacks later this quarter. In our community center, Mrs. Thurston has been hosting cooking classes during lunch, focusing on using common items found in food pantries across the valley: garbanzo bean tacos and cookies, easy cold peanut noodles, and even our Frank Church version of canned chicken lettuce wraps from P.F. Chang's. So far this year, our community center has helped 1,488 individuals and families. We feel very lucky to have this resource at our school, and we thank Mr. Barry Ochoa and all of our community support sponsors to help make it possible. I just want to say, since this is my last board report, Frank Church has been my home away from home. Frank Church has given me more than I have ever been given in my life, so thank you so much, Frank Church. Upcoming events, April 13th, we got SATs. Prom is April 22nd. Opportunity Day is April 28th. Our horticulture sale is May 5th, 6th, and 7th. And our 2022 graduation ceremony is Thursday, May 19th, held at the Frank Church High School. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Do you have any questions?
Wow, thank you, Oliver and Iona, for your report. Any trustees have questions or comments on Frank Church's? I mean, I'll do one quick one. Love the candy grams.
That was my mentor class that we did it in. We sold candy grams and little notes, and we raised about $200 for our community center to get more supplies.
Great. Was it Trustee Schmidt or Trustee Gregory?
Hi. Thank you for your report. It was really great. It just sounds like Frank Church is quite an energizing place to be. I was particularly impressed with the goal of increasing your attendance, and that you have that you can celebrate 80% attendance. And I know that there's lots of kids with who have daily challenges, and the goal to get to school and get engaged in their classwork is going to serve them down the road. And it sounds like with the calendar that you just presented, the last slide here, this is going to be a busy 2 months down to graduation. So I look forward to seeing both of you at graduation.
Yay!
It's coming.
Yeah, we're excited. We're very excited.
Trustee Langley has a comment.
Thank you guys so much for sharing all this information today. I'm so impressed by your poetry that is going to be shared with our community. I can't wait to see the published book, and to see so many of your students becoming published authors in our community is pretty exciting.
It is. I do believe I will be one of those authors, so I'm excited to see my work in there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Well, once again, thank you guys. We appreciate you being students of Frank Church because you help make Frank Church great too. So and thanks for taking time out of your evening to report to the board. We appreciate that a lot. It gives us a glimpse into what's happening. So have a good rest of the evening.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to consent agenda items. And actually, we have some public comment on some consent agenda items. We have 3 people signed up for commentary on consent agenda items E, and it's 5A, which is the Communications Committee report. And so with that, we will start with Sherry Nevers, I think, is first online. And so Sherry, when you come up, if you'll testify, say your name, your address, so we know that if you're from the Boise School District or not, and then also if you'll keep we're going to time you with 3 minutes. So just so you know, Clerk Mass will, at 2.5 minutes, she'll go up with a yellow, and at 3 minutes, she'll go up with a red, and then I'll let you finish your thoughts, and then we'll move on from there.
Thank you. My name is Sherry Nevers. So Liberty Elementary is my home elementary school. Thank you. I'm grateful that the board is taking oral testimony today, and I am speaking tonight on the upcoming communication the board plans to send out to learn about interest in half-day kindergarten. To that topic, I would like to address who the current communication will be sent to. Many parents with kindergartners this year have decided to choose other schooling options when they learned that half-day kindergarten was no longer offered. If the communication is only sent out to those who signed up for kindergarten this year, it will be biased and limited in the information it shows. Opinions and needs from the entire district should be sought out in regard to half-day kindergarten. This includes seeking out preferences of those who have future students but are not yet on the district contact list. I think there is also a need for a survey. I submitted written testimony prior to this meeting about various survey questions that I think would be beneficial in helping the district collect information on who wants half-day kindergarten and who wants full-day kindergarten, and how many of that group want both offered versus just one option offered. A survey would allow for a broader picture for both this and upcoming school years as to how many people are interested, again, in half-day kindergarten, as well as how many people within the community want both half and full-day kindergarten offered, regardless of what they personally would choose. It is important to post the survey link, I feel, both through email that the school district and the district sends out, as in the individual schools, and that the district sends out. I think it's also important to post a survey on each individual school's website, on the district website, and I think it's very important to let the news media outlets also have access to posting that survey, just to try to collect information from everyone in the district, especially like I mentioned before, those families who are not yet on the contact list for the district, but who are looking forward to their children entering the Boise School District and want them to enter with a half-day kindergarten option, or who want them to enter with a full-day kindergarten option, or both. I think the need for half-day kindergarten to be offered at registration is also an important point right now. Having half-day kindergarten offered at registration also gives the school district a built-in system for understanding and seeing the trends in which the school would have, in which schools within the district would have the most demand for half-day kindergarten, and the numbers of people who want those options. I think that's a great way to kind of get a feel of what's happening over the years and to see how to best cater to each school's needs and each student's needs. Allowing people to choose either full or half-day kindergarten is one way to make education most effective in meeting individual needs. It allows the education given to be most effective, catered to the individual. Thank you again for hearing open testimony tonight. Do I need to
Thank
take
you.
questions?
Thank you for your testimony.
I said, did I need to take questions? I didn't
No.
ask any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Next on the list is Doug Nevers.
Thank you, trustees, for allowing us to be here and to share testimony.
So Doug, I'll have you start with your name and then your
Oh,
address.
my
You're gonna
name.
say-
I-
Yeah. Even though I'm
I
pretty
get
sure.
so I get so excited to talk, I skip that part. I'm Doug Nevers. I live. Liberty is homeschool, and we love it. I'm here to request and petition that part of this forthcoming communication about half-day kindergarten that it be reviewed to ensure that it is broad, representative, and clearly communicated, and most especially actionable given the short time frame that's left in the school year. By broad, I mean making sure that it's collecting feedback and communicating potential options, not limiting itself to only one option that may bias it or limit its effectiveness. Being representative, as my wife mentioned, that if it's only sent to a limited group, it limits understanding both of preferences for prior kindergartners, current kindergartners, future kindergartners, and especially those that may not yet receive district emails, but may want that in their future. Clearly communicated. I've been saddened in talking to many people that there was much joy over full-day kindergarten, but there was also a lot of confusion about what happened in the change to the status quo, going from 60% being in half-day last year to potentially 0 or maybe more, depending on what we have as an option going forward. So having clear communication is what's sent out to parents to make sure that everyone knows what the plan is for the district going forward. And most especially actionable, that I've already started receiving from our school lists of who may be our kids' teachers for next year. That the schools are getting ready, they're excited for the next year, and parents in the same way are starting to make plans of what is my schedule going to look like next year. And without a clear understanding of what may or may be the options at their local school, it's difficult to plan, and they may get pushed outside the district seeking options that better allow the flexibility that they need for their child. Overall, I feel that education is a sacred partnership. It's a partnership between parents that know their kids best, the teacher that's coming to know them, all focused on helping the student get what they need. And that can only happen when everyone has their input as part of the table, when they clearly understand what the options are, and that there's flexibility allowed to recognize that how each person learns may not be the same. And to make it the same disadvantages those that is not meeting. And so I hope that this forthcoming communication and likely input from parents, that it honors that trust and seeks to help both the parents and the teachers and the students find what's best for their student, not just now, but beyond kindergarten. And I thank you for your time, and thank you for taking testimony today.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate your testimony. And next, we're going to move on to Sandy Corden. She's also testifying on E5A.
Would you like me to do both? I had one more I was testifying on also. Do you want me to do?
Yeah,
them
no, we'll do
together
that
or
later when
separate
we
them
get
out?
to
Okay,
that,
great.
when we get to that item, because that's later on the agenda and
Okay.
we like to match them up.
All right, just wanted to check.
Yep,
All right. Thank you
absolutely.
very much. My name is Sandy Carden, and I'm with the Boise School District Parents Association. I'd like to thank all of you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Sorry.
Yes.
I need your address.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. I'm sorry. All right. Yes. So so I would like to address consent agenda item 5, E5A, Communication Committee, item 5, Kindergarten Communication. I'm interested in hearing about what will be communicated, when, how, and who will be included in this communication. I find it most concerning that the community was not included or notified prior to the decision being made to eliminate the half-day kindergarten option. I understand Idaho Falls, for example, gave, I believe, either 4 or 6 weeks public notice before making their decision. Boise School District Administration indicated when full-day kindergarten was approved in January that they would work with parents who wanted half-day, but the webinar indicated that this would not in fact be an option and would only be used to ease in students to a full-day program. Item E3B, alternative authorization on the agenda, is a request for the board to approve a hiring emergency. If the district is declaring a hiring emergency and waiving some of the requirements for eligible teachers, I'm interested to know how they can reasonably expect to fill the 37 new kindergarten teaching positions and potentially extra music, PE, and special ed positions for the 22-23 school year. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So with that, we'll move on consent agenda. Is there a motion that goes along with consent agenda, or is one that would like to be pulled by trustees. Trustee Gregory?
I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay,
Move that we approve the consent agenda item as outlined in enclosures 1 through 18.
okay.
Second.
Second from trustee Greeley. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve consent agenda items and enclosures 1 through 18. Is there any discussion from trustees? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Consent agenda items are approved. With that, we'll go to reports and recommendations. And the first one is Mr. Bob McQuaid, Ada County Assessor, is going to tell us the state of our world.
President Waiters, trustees, it's really nice to be here. I was just thinking, I've been coming to the Boise School Board for probably 28 years. I think the first one of these that I gave to the school board was certainly down on Fort Street. And it's really been a pleasure for me to come to the Boise School Board and give my annual message. As I've told some of you, I don't have the notes to my presentation. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. Lucky for you. But I just realized I had finished a report at another local taxing district. I ran by my house a moment to grab something. I picked up the mail and I set it all on my presentation in a file folder. So I carried it into the house. And then I got over here in my car and it's like, oh my gosh, where are my notes? But anyway, we'll use the slides to guide this presentation. In general, the message is going to be unchanged at all. Some of the specifics that I would have had written down and I could have followed on my notes, they're not going to be here, but that's certainly not going to change, I think, the importance of this at all. Because what I want to do is just kind of start out, we'll look at some of the numbers, and then I want to get into a couple of other issues towards the end, and I'm going to keep this to 10 minutes or less. I want to talk about the tax burden. That's really been a hot topic among legislators and other local government officials, and then just some legislation that certainly will have impacted the Boise School District. So let's get started here with the first slide. Well, all right, we're sending out assessment notices. We've got about 217,000 going out in Ada County, but 91,000 are going to be mailed out to property owners in the Boise School District. Next slide. Before we go any further, I just want to make it clear that these numbers are preliminary. Usually I think it's in late May or June when I get here. These numbers are really nailed down by about the 10th of May. So here we are, the 11th of April. Things are really are going to change a lot, especially in the specific numbers. But some people say we overassessed or we underassessed. The fact of the matter is we're pretty good, and we certainly meet the statutory requirements. By statute, we have to be at 100% plus or minus 10%. So if you look at 2020, the last year, and this comes from a ratio study that the Tax Commission does. They take all of the sales in Ada County, compare our assessed values to these sales, and they create a ratio. And there you've got 2020 and 2021. 2020, residential and commercial are both at the same level, about 94%. In other words, our assessed value on a single family residential property was probably about 94%. So it would have been slightly under assessing, and the same with commercial. Last year, things were a little bit different. We had 94% on residential, but 97% on commercial. Usually it's just the opposite. We have a higher ratio because of on the residential improvement. We have so many more sales. We have about 11 or 12,000 residential sales that we used to put this study together. About 130 to 150 commercial sales. So how close are our values to actual property? 94, 97% on commercial, certainly well within the range. I don't shoot for 100% because if we were at 100%, that means a lot of people are going to be over 100%. And I'd rather make the error of underassessing some rather than underassessing a lot rather than overassessing a few. Next slide. See what comes up here. Okay, this is a potential taxable value. This is what, and I make this disclaimer every year here at the school board. I don't know how school budgets work. Nancy Landon for 28 years or however long she's worked here has tried to explain it to me. And she has just given up hope. I've given up hope. So I just try to stick with what the cities and the county, what we're doing. Our budgets work and the information is important to us. So we have potential taxable value. So the total market value is about $448.7 billion. That's where we are today. And we have to take homestead exemptions out of that. That comes out about 6.4 billion. That's going to reduce that. Other exemptions, we got 905 million. This is where being early is really going to show up. We know that other exemptions are going to be considerably less than what's there, but we have taken out 905 million. That would be approximately what it was last year. Exemptions have to be submitted to the commissioners. The commissioners have to approve, they have to be submitted to the commissioners by April 15th and approved and sent to the assessor by May 15th. So you can see we have a lot of exemptions that are still out there we haven't dealt with. And then we have operating property. That's property that is used by utilities, owned by utilities. Railroad tracks, it's a real good example. Pipelines, a lot of the petroleum products are transported here through pipelines. So all of that is included in operating property. And operating property is assessed by the State Tax Commission. We will get those numbers from them probably in August, but that all nets out to, so we have the total market value, take out the exemptions, outstanding exemptions, add in operating property, about $42 billion is what we're looking at. For the counties and the cities, what we would do is you would take your budget, well, the Ada County would take the budget and divide it by that total 41 billion to get our levy. All right, Will. Okay, residential values. Up 36.2 billion this year. They were 30.5 billion last year. We're looking at about 18.5% change. And that's right now. MLS, they showed that single family residential, the existing was up 35% last year. Overall, that's new and existing come in about 30%. So we're looking at about a 30% increase in our values this year. Now, I'd just like to point out that that doesn't always translate into a tax increase. A lot of people think there's going to be a 30% increase in tax. That's really not the case. Let's see, median assessed value is 18.9% here in Boise schools. Next slide. We're down to 4 minutes left. Commercial valuations, real property is this year 12.1 billion. That's a 25% increase. Business personal property, you see that as a 44% decrease. That isn't because there was a decrease for that. That is explained by a couple of things. First is that those reports have not been finished yet. The person who handles those, she doesn't really wrap that up until mid-May. My guess is that number is going to be closer to maybe 0, maybe a slight increase. Something else we have going on with the business personal property is that in the past, probably for the last 10 years, maybe, the first $100,000 of any business personal property is exempt. The legislature changed the law, and I believe it's this year it goes into effect. Is 250,000 is exempt. So that loan is going to bring that down. So we've gone from 100,000 to 250,000. So total business commercial valuations 12.5 billion, up 20%. Ready for the next one. New construction, well, that's important to us because we, and us, I say the cities and counties and other taxing authorities, because we can increase our budget by the amount of the new construction times last year's levy, the budget capacity. Now, I don't think the schools work that way. Anyway, it's new construction, and these numbers are small. This might end up, certainly going to end up being higher. The net change is, there'll probably be a positive net change when this is all said and done. But residential manufactured home right now, it's new construction is down about 9% at 223 million. Commercials off 34. New subdivisions, that's new subdivision change of status. That's any new subdivision buildings or land. The change of use is going to be an important piece because, especially if you're talking about the new construction rule. As of next year, change of use in land will not be included in new construction. In other words, if you had some residential property that had now changed to commercial property in years past, that change in value would be added to the new construction rule. But starting next year, it does not show up on the new construction rule at all. It will still assess it, but it will not go towards the new construction. Total new construction roll is 445 million, off 22%, but that's going to probably be closer to a positive number, zero positive number. Next. Urban renewal. You have a lot of urban renewal here in Boise School. I just want to point out the Myrtle River Warm Springs additions shows 193% change. This is where not having the exemptions really shows up. St. Luke's, we've not seen that exemption. And once that comes in, that 193% is probably going to fall more into 11, 12, 20%, something like that. So don't panic over that. Next slide. All right, we're getting to just the last two things I want to discuss. I want to talk about tax burden, and then we'll wind up with legislation. The tax burden is what that is who pays the taxes, commercial or residential? And this has really been a hot button topic at the legislature and other local taxing authorities. A lot of it is because there is a misunderstanding. We have tax burden and then we have assessment level, and people tend to get those confused. So tax burden in 2021, we're at, I can't see in the green, what is OB30? What is that? 69, thanks. 69% residential and 31% commercial. Is what that means is that the commercial is paying 31% of the taxes, residential is paying the other piece. That doesn't mean that we are under assessing commercial. That's the first thing people come to the conclusion. My time is up and I'll make this brief. The first conclusion they come to is that we are under assessing commercial. Well, we're not under assessing commercial. As we go back to that slide early on, we're about 97% on commercial, 94% on residential. Is what explains that is that the number of residential parcels is so much greater than the number of commercial parcels. And I wish I had my notes, I could give you specifics, but it might be like 10 or 15 times the number of residential parcels as there are commercial parcels. Also, residential parcels are increasing a lot faster than residential commercial parcels. I told you we're looking at maybe a 30% increase for residential. Right now on commercial, we're about a 17%. I know commercial is not going to be at 30%. And then also we have a lot more new construction of single family residential parcels and commercial parcels. So it's just the sheer volume and the dollar value of residential property is so much larger and growing so much faster than tax burden. Before I leave tax burden, I just want to make it clear, I have absolutely no control over tax burden at all. It really is governed by the market. What people are paying for properties, people are building properties, that is what is driving the tax burden. I'll tell you what I do have control over, and that is the level of the assessment. So we go back to that, we don't need to change the slide, but back to the slide where there's 94% ratio on residential and commercial. If this is a perfect world, I'd have them all at perhaps 97 or 98%. But that's what I can control over by using different capitalization rates on commercial property or different time trends on residential property. So when people talk about tax burden, I would just hope that you understand that the assessor has nothing to do with this. It's who pays the tax, commercial versus residential. But when we're talking about level of assessment, that's where people can say you're not assessing commercial at the same rate as residential. Last slide, and then we're finished. And I'm sorry for going so long. So I'm just going to do 10 minutes. The only, let's see here. The only bill that I really want to talk about here is House Bill 562. That was passed in 2020. And this will have impact on Boise School District for sure. it used to be you would apply for the homestead exemption. You had to have occupied the homestead by April 15th to qualify for the homestead exemption. Well, in 2021 or 2020, the legislature changed that to where you could apply for it all year long. And the impact that was is we have a lot of people who now are signing up after. In fact, I think, gosh, we had about probably maybe close to 2,000 last year who signed up for the homestead exemption after the typical date of April 15th. Well, this is important because how that is handled is causing drops in budgets, revenues. And I'll talk about Boise City because I gave that and I know the specifics on that. The State Tax Commission, through advice with the Attorney General's office, says that we cannot prorate, that they get it for the full year. So if they sign for the homestead exemption on December 31st, and believe me, people did that, they get the homestead exemption for 100% of the year. Other counties prorate it. Is what the implications of this is when we give the homestead exemption. After July, the second Monday of July, when the commissioners are finished equalizing the board, the values and everything are set for the levies. And then the levies are set. The only way that when someone comes in and they get the homestead exemption now, we're talking about December, and it can be up to $150,000, we have to take that value, that market value off. And that ends up being what is called a tax cancellation. In other words, the taxes on that $150,000, that comes off. And so Boise City is going to have theirs reduced. Boise School is going to have theirs reduced. Ada County has theirs reduced. The magnitude of this for Boise City, they lost $400,000 because of this. We had a piece of legislature to clarify the proration. That didn't materialize, so we're stuck with another year for that. And if we do, we're prorated on a quarterly basis. Anyway, I've gone way over the time that I intended on doing, but those are my comments. And this will be my last presentation here, my last year in office. I'm going to really miss these visits. And if I get homesick, can I come over to one of these meetings?
You're always welcome.
You're always welcome here, Bob. Any questions from trustees for Professor McQuaid? Trustee Gregory.
Thank you, Bob. I just have a hypothetical. Can you, off the top of your head, of some communities where the tax burden is more even between commercial and residential, where it's more like 50-50 or something like that? Or is that just a pipe dream in reality?
No, about the best I've seen is maybe 65. What's going on here is probably, for an urban area, this is probably pretty typical. When you get out into the rural areas, it really shifts from like 92, 93% residential, wow, 8% commercial. And one thing when people talk about tax burden, there really is no ideal. Yeah, there's been no stated ideal by a standard or anything like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Superintendent Dennis.
Thanks, President Wagers. Bob, it's good to see you as always. And congratulations on your last report to us. Because I know that means retirement for you, so that's a good thing for you. Congratulations. I have a question for you. I think on slide 4 you had mentioned some exemptions to the total property value. Can you give the board an example of what some of those exemptions are?
Oh, sure. Yeah. As I mentioned, St. Luke's, that's a big one. That's millions and millions and millions of dollars. Other exemptions would be churches. Those are all given exemption. Schools, for nonprofit schools would be in that. Fraternal, benevolent, and charitable organizations, that would be in there. All those exemptions are listed in 63,602. But the biggest exemption, by the way, which really surprises everyone, is the homestead exemption. Dollar amount, it is by far the biggest. It's well over, I think it's 50% or more of the total amounts of exemption. Micron has an exemption for operating. They qualify for exemption. If you're going to invest over $1 billion, you can get an exemption that limits your market value.
Follow up. Sure. Bob, I know that the legislature has been doing a lot around personal property. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and how that affects the overall taxable value?
What personal property is, or okay. Personal property is anything other than real property or anything other than real property primarily is what it is, and operating property. So it's the chair that you sit at your home, that's personal property. That's exempt. There's an exemption, but we don't track that exemption. When you get into businesses, that property is not exempt, other than the first 100 or 250,000 that is exempt. You would have businesses that would have maybe $3,000 or $4,000 of property. They had maybe a computer, an office, a computer or a file cabinet. That would all be assessed. A lot of equipment in manufacturing facilities, that's all personal property.
Superintendent.
President Wagers, I just think it's important for the board to understand that we're going to see a change in the overall taxable value of our district because of some of these exemptions and some of the personal property that is really been legislated over the last couple of years. And it's the reason I wanted Bob to kind of talk a little bit about that, because it's going to have an impact on our property values as a district.
Thank you. Any other questions for Assessor McQuaid? None? Well, but you're not done yet.
Uh-oh. Here it comes.
If you'll wait there for a second, Bob. I can have all the trustees come down and you too. Mark, for your 28 years of service. I'll have you come over with me and I'll read it to you, just so everybody can know that it's on the record. So 28 years, you said. So we're going to give Robert H. McQuaid our Friend of Education Award in appreciation for your distinguished and dedicated service for the Boise School District from the Boise School District Board of Trustees on April 11th, 2020. So we've been lucky we have government that actually works together. And that, that makes a big difference, because we can lean on you and say, okay, where are our budgets going to be? And you help make that more accessible to us. And without those options, our life gets a lot harder. And you have been very trustworthy, and your whole crew and department, which you've led. I know it's not just you, but you've made it happen, and you've always been, we knew it was something we could count on for our budgets. And so thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
It's very humbling. It really is. We work together. It's a partnership. And I've got to tell you, I have such high regard for the Boise School District. It's, they just provide an amazing education to the kids, and it's all because of your leadership. And I want to thank you for what you're doing for the youth of today and the adults in the world of tomorrow.
Thank you so much again. So with that, we can move on to reports and recommendations number 2, which is the Waihi Liberty Boundary Petition Update. And I think, that's going to be Lynette Daw. Thank you.
Good evening, President Wagers, trustees. Tonight, I bring before you some information about a boundary petition that we received. So I'm just here to share information on where we're at in this process and the petition that we received. So first, I want to explain the area of the petition. So on this map, you can see down in the small inset, that is showing the entire boundary for Owaihi Elementary in the brownish colors and the entire boundary for Liberty Elementary in the green colors. The area from the petition is in the bluish purple, and this contains Montera Townhomes Apartments on the west side and Promontory Ridge homes on the east side of this triangle. And so we received a petition. So this includes 30 elementary students living here. 20 of those students attend Owaihi, mostly coming from Montera Townhomes. And then 10 students attend Liberty right now through open enrollment, primarily coming from Promontory Ridge on the east side. So we received a petition from 40 residents living in Promontory Ridge requesting that we make a boundary change to move this area from Owaihi Elementary to Liberty Elementary. The two main focuses of that petition were, one, proximity to the school, more proximity to Liberty compared to Owaihi. The second main theme of the petition was wanting the students to be able to attend elementary school with the peers that they will be going to school with in junior high and high school at LeBois and Timberline due to the feeder pattern. So this is the petition that we received. So I wanted to let you know the steps that we're taking next to evaluate this area. So this week we have 2 small group meetings, one at Owaihi and one at Liberty, with a couple of teachers and parents to discuss the petition, discuss the proposal, and get feedback and just introduce our communication plan. The communication plan after that meeting will be a 2-week comment period that we will be sending notice out to all of the residents living in this area of proposal change to get their feedback. Once we receive their feedback, then we'll make a decision to bring to the board for consideration of the outcome of that feedback. And so our goal is to bring that to the board in May. And now I'm open for any questions that you may have regarding this petition.
Any questions from, I forgot to announce it. Actually, Lynette is our transportation supervisor, but she also oversees our boundaries at the same time. Well, she's a very lucky individual. Any questions from trustees on this process? Trustee Haas.
So the area where is it Promontory Ridge?
Yes.
So so is the closest school Liberty then? Is that correct? Is that the closest grade school?
President Wagers, trustee. Liberty is the closest. White Pine is also very close. The petition was specifically slated for Liberty. There were a couple of comments that said White Pine would be sufficient as well.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Gregory.
Thank you, Lynette. Can you tell me, do you have a committee that's going to review the survey input? And, having been on previous boundary committees, there's a lot of things to think about, just like the question that Trustee Haas said, and that committee will be asking those questions and, looking at the impact. You're interviewing both schools, is that right?
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Gregory. So most boundary proposals, we have a committee that consists of the principals and administrators that review the area. I know with the Dallas Harris one, we expanded that and broadened it just because it was a new school in a bigger area. This one, our committee consists of the area directors and principals from this quadrant, in addition to a couple of parents and teachers. Are not necessarily a committee, but it's part of that small group meeting that we will do at one at Owaihi and one at Liberty.
Okay, excellent.
Any other questions? Supervisor Daw? Nope. Thank you for undertaking this process. Process is, it's very important to what we do, and we're glad we have those in place and we follow them, and it makes us better when we ask for the input and get it correctly.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to number 3, which is a little update on Senate Bill 1404. And I think we have Deputy Superintendent Roberts.
I'm just going to speak from here simply because this is a pretty quick agenda item. We are thrilled that this month, $1,000 payment will go out to every employee of the Boise School District with the passing of House Bill 1404. So the governor made it clear in January that he really wanted to do something for educators. And then working with the legislators, they were able to pass the House Bill 1404, which is a $1,000 payment to every employee in the school district. Originally, it was just for pupil, personnel, and instructional, and then they expanded that to all employees. So a communique went out to district staff last week, and that will be paid out in the April paycheck. So a huge thank you to the governor and the legislators for supporting and thanking our staff.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent Roberts. Any comments from trustees? No. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to the literacy update. Now, we will have public comment on the literacy update, but typically what we do is we go through the presentation first, then we'll have any trustee clarifications, and then we'll go to the public comment on it. So if we can go ahead and move forward with that. Looks like we're going to start with Supervisor RT Duke.
Hello, President Wagers and Board of Trustees and Superintendent Dennis. Thanks for having me here tonight. Super weird to see myself on TV. But I am glad that I came on plaque night. So let's just, after public comment, I'll get my plaque. Fair enough. Thanks. That's good to see everybody. I do have a slide presentation that's floating around. All right, we will rock it. And maybe Jody could send that on to Sharon real quick. Could we do that? So tonight, while we're hopefully getting that set up, and if we don't, that's okay. Thank you.
Well, I kind of like the look at RT Duke show.
I don't get a plaque now. Okay. So tonight, I know we have some new board members, and so I've done some updates on the past and our early literacy data, our information that we get on students and their assessment data throughout the year. So I just want to go over, some of the steps that our district has taken to address, some of our concerns from the pandemic and the way it's really upended a lot of educational opportunities for students, what we've done to address those, what we're going to continue to do in the future to address those, and then walk through some of what our data looks like. So sans my slideshow, I'm going to vamp a little bit and just, wow, that was perfect timing. All right.
The magic.
Well done. Okay. A little miscommunication of who sent. Yeah. Okay. So literacy update. So we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's what we've done so far this year. So as I was talking about, we really recognize the need to implement and improve the resources, the professional development, and the time for our teachers. I mean, really, when you're trying to make a change in curriculum, when you're trying to make a change in instruction, one of the goals is you can't just give teachers a program. 2 years ago, we adopted Wonders for our kindergarten through second grade students. And oftentimes that's not enough, that those programs are so big and they're so hard to navigate. What we really wanted to do through this year was to establish the practice of evidence-based instruction and teaching reading with Wonders as our adopted program. So we gave our teachers the resource. Now we wanted to really hone in on the professional development and how that could work for our teachers. And so we also adopted third grade Wonders this year. We were able to get that in with some of our federal dollars that we received from the government. And a huge credit to our teachers and to our principals, to our reading specialists, and all of our support staff in our schools, because this was a really hard time to ask for new things and changes and all that. And I have to say they did a phenomenal job at just engaging with the partnership that we had with the Lee Pesky Center, which is a local community based project that really works with schools to identify evidence-based practices in the classrooms and to really promote those amongst the teachers and the principals and all the specialists and paraprofessionals that are in the schools. So this year we were able to, mostly our goals were to really look at our literacy outcomes, and those come in multiple forms, but the real form that we have, or the most tangible one that we can look at, and we'll look at that later, is the data that we get from iStation, which is our Idaho Reading Indicator assessment. So that's a state mandated thing that all kindergarten through third grade students take. And they have to do it within the fall and the spring. And then we kind of see how they grow in between those measures. And then we can really, assess the students as much as we need to see how they're doing. So the Lee Pesky Center was really there as our partner to help our teachers and our principals and our reading specialists drive home what evidence-based reading instruction is. And it's all science-driven. It's all proven to work for students. And it's been really a great opportunity for all of our kindergarten through third grade teachers to learn the strategies and skills that we need to do that. So we can move on to the next slide. Our plans for next year include all-day kindergarten and offering that, because that does have measurable and meaningful outcomes for students. Next year, we're also implementing learning coaches in our buildings. And those learning coaches are really there to establish some of those core instruction practices. So those times when students are together, all together in the same class, regardless of their level, whether they're the highest achieving reader or students that are really just learning to sound out words, we want our learning coaches to really support our teachers, not just in the early classrooms, but obviously all the way up until to 12th grade. We also will have a new team of 4 district level reading specialists. And our goal with them is to really, we can't keep contracting with the Lee Pesky Center every year because we just can't do that. There's other things to prioritize. So our goal with them is to really establish them as sort of our in-house reading specialists, our in-house Lee Pesky Center. So I know that they just got done hiring that, and those are phenomenal people that are going to really be able to take what the Lee Pesky Center brings to us from outside and bring it inside to our district and make it more of an in-house thing that we have forever, which is great. The other thing that I talked about was time. As the district leadership has been working on collaborating with how to figure out how to make these things work, giving the gift of time is such a great thing. And so teachers are really going to have some good opportunities next year to have common collaboration periods across their grade levels. Be able to talk about these strategies, talk about students, talk about the information that they're getting from some of these assessments, and then address the instruction as they need it. And if someone slow me down, or just raise your hand if I'm going too fast, okay? So, and then again, we're gonna partner with the Lee Pesky Center, really trying to entrench the pedagogy that we're looking at in our early grades, kindergarten through third grade, and build capacity in our system, in our school system, to have the expertise and the knowledge that is, the most up to date and the most recent knowledge on teaching early literacy to our kids. So, I spat a lot at you. Any questions on that first before we dive into some of the information from the assessments?
I don't see any.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. So as I said earlier on, the Idaho Reading Indicator, we call it the IRI. There's a lot of acronyms in education. That's why I'm called RT. Sorry, I had to get that one.
Did your parents know that ahead of time? Is that...
Tip your waitress. Okay, so we give the iStation test, and we give it. It's required that we give it 2 times a year, in the fall and then the spring. And then there has been some additional legislation coming out from this year's legislature, where some of our funding is going to be based off of our achievement or our growth on those metrics that we get. So it's starting to be a little bit more high stakes. So we give the assessment every, August, October, December, February, and May to every kid in the district. And we do that because we're trying to ride that balance between over-assessing students or just assessing students for the sake of it, getting the number, but actually using that information that we get from the test to make moves with students. So a lot of times what you'll see is, I'll use my daughter as an example. She's a first grader. She started to lose her letter knowledge test. Like she started dropping that, and her teacher, who's excellent, was able to kind of recognize that and just give her a quick little intervention, and she was back on track going. So it's good for all kids to really see where they are. And then we take all the students who are tiers 2 and 3. So those are the students that are either slightly below grade level or, probably a little bit more below grade level than we need them to be. we do that monthly so that we can keep tracking to see how they're progressing in those skills that we're intervening with.
Trustee Gregory.
Just to kind of help us out and get a handle on what this looks like. These aren't 4-hour ISAT tests. These are just in class. Are they one-on-one assessments or just a 20-minute paper, pencil? Tell us what it looks like.
Yeah, President Wagers and Trustee Gregory, they're about, on average, about 20 to 25 minutes. They are administered on a computer.
Okay.
And so, you know, it's kind of slick the way you can get through that pretty quick. So yeah, about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, we can move on to the next slide. So it's a computer test. It's adaptive. So really what that means is when a student takes or answers a question, it will adjust the difficulty of the question based on if they got it correct or not. So it'll start giving harder questions as they answer more and more correctly, and it'll start leveling down if they're and trying to find out exactly where they are. So the state adopted this about 4 years ago as their main IRI. You know, the main thing that we want, though, as I'll kind of quote someone else in the room, you know, we're really trying to get our assessment to be a verb and not a noun, which is really we're going to take action on it, and we're not going to just make it a thing. So I won't go through all what the test is, but it's there for you if you want questions. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. And these are just the different domains at each level that students are assessed on. So as you see in kindergarten and first grade, they're getting a lot of the really early literacy tests. I won't go into explanations about what all those are. You can kind of get most of them, but the phonemic awareness, I'll spare you. So thanks to the crowd in the back laughing. So, but you know, as you can see, we start losing some of those early literacy assessments as kids get out of first grade, and we really start looking at their comprehension, their ability to spell, which all goes back to their foundational phonics skills. So,
Trustee Gregory, you had a question?
I'm sorry to interrupt. Supervisor Duke, this looks a lot like the domains that were on the old Iowa basic skills that that my children took many years ago. But the difference, and this is just really exciting, and we've been moving in this direction since that time, is the small, those formative assessments that let us see where the kid is right now and how to target that instruction. Because in the past, we got a test at the end of the year, and you may not even get the results until it was time to go for summer break. And so what could a teacher do except, like you said, just hold a number up to say, this is the number for this child. So I think these smaller, more timely formative assessments are so exciting for teachers because it allows them to make those little tweaks that are more individualized and help kids see success, not just get a label at the end of the year.
President Wagers, Trustee Gregory, yeah, that's exactly right. And you can even hone it in during the month where if a student's still struggling with letter knowledge, for instance, you can just give them that little 3-minute assessment.
Right.
And it'll, you've done an intervention, you've done some sort of teaching to that specifically for that kid or a group, and you can see if they've made progress in a couple of weeks. So yeah, you're exactly right. Okay, next slide. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we are right now in our school-wide data. So the last assessment that we gave to every kid in the school district was in February. So it's a little dated already, but we want to at least give you a glimpse of where we are and where we're headed. So tier 1, and again, we're kind of talking a lot of jargon in education. So tier 1 is really just on track. So they'll show up in the system as green. They're on track to be at grade level expectations. And that's, I think the key word is on track, because when we're talking about our learning coaches, what goes on in the classroom in that core instruction with students is key throughout the whole year, because students can start at the beginning of the year tier 1, and if they're not getting what they need throughout the year, they can drop down into the other tiers. Okay, tier 2 is really at some risk, and then tier 3 is at a pretty significant risk. Okay, and our goal, the bottom at the arrows, is you want to see the green arrows in tier 1 go up, and then the red arrows go down, and those a little confusing, but that's we want to see 1 green arrow and 2 red ones. Okay, so we'll go on to the next slide. click a couple times. Oh, well, okay, there we go. Thank you. So as you can see from August to now, so we've been through, well, we've been through 4, but I don't think we have the October one in there. Well, it is on the left, but not on. Okay, so you can see that, you know, our kindergarten is doing exactly that in December. You know, our tier 1 is really moving, and we're starting to really drop in the lower tiers. And then we have in February where we start to get that uptick in tier 3. And, you know, could be a number of reasons. You know, we had a pretty big pause in January with a lot of the virus transmission and teachers being out and all of that. But also, these assessments are based on national norms. And a lot of the national norms are from all-day kindergarten programs. And so, you know, a lot of that we can attribute to just kids might not be getting that exposure and that time that they need to be doing that. So they might be falling behind based on their kids that are in that all-day program. So any questions on the kindergarten? Okay, we'll move on to the first grade. And this is our students in first grade. And this one that in the last 4 years that we've given this assessment, first grade's been one that's kind of hung out and really slowed in progress throughout the year. So it's really exciting to see we're starting to make some real impact in first grade. And that, as all the research has said, we always hear third grade is really the key grade, but we're starting to hear that first grade is it. You know, kids can really gain a lot of where they would have ended up with sound instruction in first grade. And that will make a huge impact for students. So I'm really excited to see where we're going in first grade. Move on to second. There it is. Okay. Same thing happening in second grade. Oh, okay. Same thing is happening in second grade. And we're moving in the right direction. And then we'll move to third grade. And this has been pretty typical with third grade. So we've got to do some digging on what's going on in third grade and where we're headed with some of the arrows that are pointing in the directions that we're trying to get the opposite. So it's been pretty typical in third grade for us to sort of stagnate there. So that's something we'll have to take a look at down the road. So, okay. I think the next slide is just questions.
Trustee Greeley.
Thank you, President Wagers. Supervisor Duke, I just wanted to clarify something from my understanding. Because we've gotten some emails on the learning coaches. So my understanding of the learning coaches is now that it is building evidence-based research in all of the classrooms, which will allow for greater impact on all students, not just a handful. Is that accurate?
President Wagers, Trustee Gregory, yes, that's accurate. I mean, what I really want to put out there and just emphasize is this is not a problem with teachers. This is an issue that, like all things, we learn more as time goes on about how students learn to read. And there's been updated and really truly evidence-based, which is sort of the gold standard in education. We all say research-based, but evidence-based means that there's been shown and proven evidence that those systems and those teaching styles have worked. And that's been pretty solidified in the last few years. So we wanted to bring that to our staff and just bring them the most recent and updated training that we can. And one of the ways that we can do that is our partnership with the Lee Pesky Center, and then also really emphasizing with our learning coaches, when all students are in the room, here are some of the things that we can be doing for every kid to help them grow in that space. So did that answer your question? Okay.
Trustee Langley.
I just wanted to follow up with what Trustee Greeley had to say. I very much appreciated the objectives outlined as they were, the objectives 1 through 3 that you showed us on the slides. And I don't know how easy it is to get there, but just if you're watching at home to go back and read those, were very helpful in outlining how it seems to me, and I just would love clarification, we're really moving that, like if a kid is struggling, they're getting it every day in the classroom, rather like before they're even struggling, they're having evidence-based structure in the classroom before they're going to a specialist. They're being provided another level of support every day in the classroom. Is that what I'm reading when I read those objectives?
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Langley. Yes, I mean, it's prevention, right? I mean, we are trying to prevent students from having to see a specialist to help them with their reading. And the best way to do that is to start where they learn first. So, yes.
Thank you.
Wow, the weather's hitting.
Coming in.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Gregory?
Well, I will say, I'm looking forward to updates as we go along, and I appreciate the staff and their willingness to engage in their own professional development as we make a shift here. I did see this model at Morley Nelson in specific several years ago, when they, instead of sending kids out for specialists, they brought specialists into the classroom. And it was kind of like a work of art to see the engagement of students at all levels in doing different things around the classroom, and direct instruction was being offered. And it was a great atmosphere, instead of isolating kids who, everybody knows they didn't quite make the grade, so they have to go out of the classroom. That kind of community built capacity and gave opportunity for the teachers to kind of use the synergy of the whole group to move even the most struggling readers along.
Yeah. President Wagers and Trustee Gregory. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to learn basketball if you're just shooting free throws.
Right.
So.
Trustee Schmidt.
Thanks, President Wagers. Supervisor Duke, we've been hearing as a board a little bit about this concept of the learning coaches, the learning, sorry, I got to get the language correct.
Learning coach.
Yeah. Where did it go? Is that the right term? Am I using the right
Learning
term?
coach?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we've been learning a little bit about that. And one of the concerns that I have is that I want to make sure that we're not overloading the classroom teacher, because I completely agree that being able to keep the students in the classroom and have instruction that's tailored and appropriate to challenge them at that level is key. And so I think there's going to be a couple things that are critical to make that work. And one is you've got to have the right learning coach. Like, they have to be a pretty special person to be able to work with the in-class teacher. I know that those positions have just recently been filled, but then in addition, I think you're going to have to work with the teachers to help them learn how to be in a classroom with another teacher. It almost seems like there could be some territory issues or something else. So how have you guys leveraged the evidence-based instruction that you've seen elsewhere or are studying and bringing here to address those things, to make sure that we do hit every child where they are? We're challenging the ones who are ahead of the curve, and we're supporting the ones and encouraging and bringing them up. And we're still focused on those who are at grade level.
President Wagers and Trustee Schmidt. Yeah, and I hope I didn't muddy the waters too much on that. The learning coach is for all schools, right? All levels, all schools. And they're really working on helping students to drive their own instruction, to drive their own learning. I mean, I think that's the ultimate goal, is that a student can articulate where they are going, what's next, and why they're doing what they're doing in the classroom. Fortunately, we've been able to partner with the Lee Pesky Center again to add an additional level of support for our kindergarten through third grade teachers to really try to hone in on some of those core instructional practices. I think the learning coaches will be working alongside of them, but I don't believe that they'll be in the classroom teaching lessons and things like that. That'll be the Pesky's work to really come in and model really good practices. Learning coaches will be there, probably observing, just trying to glean as much knowledge as they can throughout the year, just so that they can be keyed in on some of those practices that they're getting. I hope that answered your question.
It does. It just as a follow-up then. So you talked about professional development for the in-classroom teacher. How is that being received by the teachers? Either as Trustee Gregory mentioned it, at Morley Nelson, we've been doing it. How are the teachers receiving that in general?
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt. September was a hard month. Everybody was really just tired already, you know. So I think it was just a hard time for them to have to get something more, regardless of what it was. So I think that, you know, as time's gone on, they've started to really glean some practices from the. I mean, I can't speak for every teacher, but I can say that that as people have worked with the trainers from the Pesky Center, I've heard a lot of positive things, and getting reports from the Pesky Center as well. Just as people are starting to lower their guards a little bit. You know, we're not there to fix you. We're there to just kind of give you some more practices that are there. So I'm hoping that next year that continued partnership will just keep going.
And then one more follow-up then. So from a evidence standpoint, we're looking at the IRI scores, and I think that's a great method. How are we helping the teachers? How are we gauging, I guess, as a district, how are we gauging how the teachers are doing and feeling about their progress in this method? Is that primarily the responsibility of them and the principals, or I guess
Yeah.
I'm just concerned about how are they raising their hand to say, hey, I need help, or I'm really struggling with this, and what support are we able to provide them?
Yeah, President Wagers, Trustee Schmidt, that's a great point. And I think it's something that we need to look at as a district. I do know that the principal were really involved in that. I mean, as I know, our district leadership has been really focused on building instructional leaders just as a whole. And part of that is being in tune with your teachers and having conversations about that. I think having the extra time next year, the collaboration time that they'll have to be able to talk to their peers, and some potential changes to our professional learning community that we have, where teachers are able to really come in and look at evidence and try some things out and come back to their group of people. I think all of these things are changing our system in a way that can support people better, that don't have to come from you know, a person in my position where it's a 30,000-foot view. It'll be a little bit more organic in terms of how they can address those things. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Gregory.
I just have to have one more comment that science, or the instruction teaching, is a whole lot more of a science than it was when I graduated from college as an elementary school teacher a long time ago. And yet we still have people in the profession who love kids, who take time, who know that the more you read to a child, the more likely they are to pick up a book by themselves. And the connections that students have with their teachers are really one of the most important ingredients in an effective classroom. And our teachers know that. We're just trying to give them as effective a tool as we can. And usually that is pretty exciting for them. And I do acknowledge that these have been some really trying months, which ran into years, and that I'm thankful for every one of them who comes back in September to teach. And they do it because they make an impact on kids. And that's what I hear from students. I mean, this past weekend, I was out at Victory Middle School in West Ada at a Battle of the Books competition with several of our librarians and English teachers who were there with their teams of kids in the middle of this excitement that was just hair-raising almost. And they were as excited as their kids, talking about this list of 10 books that they had all prepared and read thoroughly to enter this competition. And so I had two kids in my car as I was going home, raving about this teacher and this teacher and this teacher and this teacher. So those connections are still happening in our buildings all the time and are only enhanced. And our job is to help them do the best job they can as a professional. And they bring a whole lot of heart to it. So I just am so grateful for people who choose to be educators.
Superintendent Dennis.
Thanks, President Wager. I want to kind of go back to the question that Trustee Schmidt asked a few minutes ago. I think the other thing that is really important for the board to understand is one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to strengthen our core instruction within the classroom. That doesn't mean we aren't continuing with the tiered intervention program that we have within the district. So when a kid is not performing to the level of proficiency, for lack of a better term, or can't provide the evidence, then we need to strengthen those interventions within the classroom. Once that happens and we're still not seeing the growth, then we start going to level 2 and level 3 intervention programs that may require the kid to leave the classroom. So I don't want to give the impression that this is replacing our tiered intervention that we do very well for kids. It's really trying to strengthen the core instruction within the classroom. I think that's really the key piece. And if I could just ask Supervisor Duke a question. RT, can you talk a little bit about who the Lee Pesky Center is? Because some of our board members, some of the public may not know who they are and why we chose them.
President Wagers, Superintendent Dennis, I should have done my homework a little bit on the history of the Lee Pesky Center, but I do know that someone that I've worked with closely, Dr. Deb Glazer, who's become like really an international specialist on dyslexia and reading. She started working there and starting to develop her practices in the science of reading. So it's a community organization that helps students, families, and school districts with just getting their students early literacy skills so that they can succeed. It's been an amazing partnership with them, and the people that they have there are just top-notch educators, former educators, and researchers. They are unbelievable. So they're located over by Waihe Elementary, and they just are incredible people.
And I can testify to that a little bit. I had twin daughters who had reading issues when they were early K through 2, and they went to the Lee Pesky Center. And now they're both going to med school in September. So it seemed to work. Yeah. Any other questions for Supervisor Duke? Okay, thank you for the presentation. We will now go to the public comment on that. So Sandy, if you'll come up again, and then once again, name and address, and away we go.
Thank you again. I'm Sandy Carden with the Boise School District Parents Association. And please bear with me since I wrote this before seeing the presentation. I'll try and update accordingly. So the information that I'm going to be talking about is a bit outdated. It's from the October 2021 IRI update that was presented. So one of the things that was presented was overall 61% of K through 3rd graders currently are proficient, up from 57% in the fall of 2018. Likewise, current 3rd graders are up to 66% proficiency compared to 53% when they were in kindergarten. So unfortunately, the district did not present early literacy data broken down by demographic. And one of the things that I found when I was exploring the State Department of Ed accountability website is that when you single out the economically disadvantaged students, we see that 12% of them fell out of that tier 1 category between spring of 2019 and spring of 2021. This is over double the statewide average, or I'm sorry, roughly the statewide average, which was 6.4% of economically disadvantaged students that fell out of that category, or 5.3% for West Ada. So even though overall as a district, it seems like we did very, very well, it seems like middle income and upper income families who maybe had a work from home parent or a stay-at-home parent, or were able to hire professional tutoring, that when you average those things out, it looks like maybe we fared a little bit better than we did, but those economically disadvantaged students in the Boise School District seem to have fared worse than the state average in West Ada by quite a bit. I brought this data to the attention of district administration and several other parents, and I emailed the board in January. with such a large percentage of students falling out of the proficient category, I'm very concerned about suspending the reading specialist program, since struggling readers do benefit so greatly from this type of intervention. And I understand that there will still be 4 reading specialists within the district, but that's obviously very different than having, I believe there is one at every elementary school. Maybe that's not accurate, and you all can speak to that specifically. It's also my understanding, and I'm hoping that some of the staff that are here, the board members who've been with the district for quite some time, can speak to this. I've spoken with teachers who've been in the district for quite some time, and they have stated that learning coaches have been utilized in the past, and the program was disbanded because it was not successful. It's my understanding, according to these teachers that I've spoken with, that it put more burden and responsibility on already overworked and overwhelmed teachers. Many teachers felt like they were, is that my timer? Okay. I'm sorry.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Okay. They felt like they were being watched by Big Brother, and that the students were not able to get the specialized help. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you for your testimony. So that concludes our regular agenda items. Now we'll move into executive session. So at this point, we don't adjourn the meeting. We move the meeting into a back office where we hear executive session items, and then we will come back into open session after that point. So I would entertain a motion. Trustee Greeley.
I move that we go into executive session according to Idaho Code Section 742061B.
Second.
Second from Trustee Gregory. So I need a roll call vote.
Trustee Greeley,
Aye.
Trustee Gregory,
Aye.
Trustee Hawes,
Aye.
Trustee Langley,
Aye.
Trustee Schmidt,
Aye.
Trustee Wagers.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So we will come back into regular session after we finish our executive session, and then come back for trustee superintendent comments. All right, we are back in session. I think I'll entertain a motion or two from executive session. Trustee Gregory?
Thank you, President Wagers. I move that we place employee A, discuss an executive session on paid administrative leave pending investigation.
Second.
Second from Trustee Greeley. Any discussion on trustees? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Trustee Gregory?
President Wagers, I move that we place employee B, discussed in executive session on paid administrative leave pending investigation.
Second.
Second from Trustee Greeley. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. With that, we'll move on to board trustee and superintendent comments. Any comments? Trustee Gregory.
Thank you, President Wagers. I should really think about this before I come, but we have in front of us a calendar item in May, I believe, May 4th, which is Idaho School Boards Association Leadership Institute. And it would be very beneficial for our board to go, if as many as can go. This would be the new professional development director of the ISBA, who previously worked for the Professional Standards Commission at the Idaho State Department of Education. And they bring a pretty impressive agenda to, if you have that time. And I believe the time is a 1 to 5 in the afternoon. I don't think the time is on the card, but 1 to 5 on the 4th. Okay, and it will be here
Yeah, it's in our board meeting.
in our board
In our
room
boardroom.
here, and this is for our whole region.
Mhm.
So we could see many more trustees here. So if that can work with your calendar, that would be wonderful.
It's a good chance they go over open meeting law. They go over, typical board norms, some different things. So it's a nice chance.
Yeah.
For a refresher for some and new stuff for others. I have a quick comment. I mean, we attended the NSBA conference, and that was an eye opener for all of us. Lots of good learning sessions, a little bit better understanding of where we all come from, which is, part of the thing is we work as a team to help move this district forward. It's great to have those opportunities, but, lots of good sessions, lots of good questions to pose to administration for the future, which is, they love that.
I love it.
They love it. They love it.
Hashtag.
Hashtags in all our policies from now on. Yep. But it was a great opportunity for me. And I appreciate all the trustees making the effort to go, because it is a serious investment in time. We went on a Friday and came back on a Monday night. So you lost your weekend and change. But for me, it was well worth it. So I appreciate everybody going. Any other comments? Trustee Schmidt.
Thanks, President Wagers. I just wanted to say that I appreciated the chance to hear the update regarding the learning coaches and the progress that we're seeing in the kindergarten through 3rd grade literacy, and understand that 3rd grade is still not where we need it to be, where we want it to be. But I appreciate the focus on that, and I expect that as you guys continue to put effort into that, we'll see that change as well. So we'll look forward to seeing the updates on that.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to get back to where we're focusing on academics and the child. Yep, absolutely. Any other? You got anything from the? Okay. Thank you for the public comment. I mean, I guess that's nice
President
to
Wagers?
have oral testimony again too. But Trustee Haas?
According to section 21 of Robert's Rules of Orders, I move to adjourn this meeting.
I second.
It's been moved by the Terminator and seconded by Trustee Gregory. All in favor? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.